Will Frank Warren let Daniel Dubois fight Moses Itauma? I was thinking about this and it generated some ideas and observations. So here is my perspective. So let's discuss 8 ideas around this concept. Idea number 1. Frank Warren has every financial reason to prevent this fight or delay the fight. That's not a conspiracy. That is simply business. I think it's important that he won't prevent the fight. I think he will delay the fight. Why will he delay the fight? Because the longer the fight gets delayed, the bigger the fight will be. And when we say bigger, it won't just be bigger economically, it will be bigger culturally. It's already a big fight in Britain, but it will become a bigger fight in Britain. It would already be a big fight globally, but it will be a bigger fight globally. But when the promoter, such as Frank Warren, owns both fighters or manages both fighters or promotes both fighters, who's protecting the fans? And who is the promoter loyal to? Is he loyal to the fans? Is he loyal to Moses? Is he loyal to Daniel Dubois? Or is he loyal to all 3 sections? And can you be loyal to everyone? So there's interesting layers to this fight. But I think there is a vested interest in delaying this fight as long as possible, because the longer it gets delayed, the stronger the narrative becomes. So idea 2, Warren is running 2 racehorses in the same stable, figuratively speaking. Dubois, who is Daniel Dubois? He's the established champion. Moses Itauma, the terrifying prospect. That makes this fight a massive risk, a huge risk. So the reward needs to justify the risk. For Moses Itauma, if the fight's made early and he loses badly, this could be a devastating defeat. Now, Dubois has good feet. He has great feet. And some would say he has like a Sonny Liston jab. He has a very, very powerful jab. And, both men have great skills. So then moving to idea number 3, the value of Itauma right now isn't in a result or in results. It's in his unbeaten mystique, undefeated hype. And that's a renewable asset. A loss is a fire sale. Is Itauma worth more as a question than an answer? In other words, part of the Moses Itauma machine is the invincibility. The marketability is on the emphatic nature of the wins and the fact that in boxing values undefeated records. Now, it's important to remember here that if this fight is marketed correctly, I believe it fills a big stadium, a massive stadium. Some may disagree with that premise, and that's fine, but the potential is huge. But this is all about the right timing. Just imagine a Moses Itauma Daniel Dubois fight for complete heavyweight unification. That would be history, and that would be epic. It would be British history, it would be world history, and it would resonate across the boxing world. So idea number 4, Dubois has more to lose than anyone, or does Itauma have more to lose? Daniel Dubois, he's young, he's heavy-handed, while Moses Itauma is young, heavy-handed, has great feet. They both have great feet. But you can't say that Daniel Dubois has been protected, because he has fought a lot of good competitors in the heavyweight division. And I think the fact that Moses Itauma is now fighting Filip Hrgović, it's getting harder to make an argument that he's being protected as well. I think a lot of people may perceive that Moses Itauma, due to the undefeated record and the massive machine that's being pumped behind him, may be the bigger cash cow. Dubois is also a cash cow. He's a British brand, a global brand. But Moses Itauma is a rising star. His star is rising exponentially. So it's definitely a risk it's a huge risk for Moses Itauma to fight Daniel Dubois. Because if Moses Itauma fight Daniel Dubois and he loses badly, that could be potentially the end of his career. Of course, it would depend on the nature of the defeat. For Daniel Dubois to fight Moses Itauma, if Daniel Dubois was to lose, he could rebuild. He has the psychology of, he's confronted loss before. And I remember there's a film called, I'm going on a deflection here, but there's a film called Enter the Dragon. And in that film, it's a great film with Bruce Lee, there's a scene where someone goes, I'm paraphrasing, it's not about accepting victory. We define ourselves by how we accept defeat. And Daniel Dubois has accepted defeat before, and he's come back. So idea number 5, the genius of the slow play is crucial. So every month at Warren Waits, both men headline their own cards, sell their own tickets, and build 2 separate audiences that eventually collide and can potentially double and triple the money. So delay isn't indecision. It isn't indecision. It's compounding interest. So patience is a virtue, literally. It's an economic virtue. It's an asset. Of course, if we play devil's advocate, if either fighter loses, then the compounding interest stops. So even in a delay, even the delay has a risk, but the risk is a smaller risk. And in a sense, if Moses Itauma was to lose, then the interest is lost, particularly in that moment. If Daniel Dubois loses, then the interest is lost, particularly in that moment. This is assuming that they're unable to rebuild. So the delay makes sense because it builds that economic ladder, but the risk of the delay is the loss, because a loss would make the interest of the fight totally flatline. And then idea 6, this is where Zuffa boxing, only fighting the best ethos, can be really effective because their promotional model is structurally built to avoid the best fighting the best until it's maximally profitable. Let me break that down. So Zuffa, in theory, the best should be fighting the best regardless of the context. So it's a meritocracy, and a meritocracy means the best fight the best. And in boxing, there's been lots of criticisms where the best do not fight the best. And mostly this is due to political reasons. In fairness to Frank Warren, he does run a meritocracy because he always has a tendency in the past to put his fighters up against each other. He puts the best in with the best. In that sense, I'm assuming the psychology of Frank Warren is a risk taker. And I'm assuming, and it's an assumption, that he sees the opportunity. But it's important, as we've stated previously, for this fight to wait, for it to sizzle and gain maximum momentum. And then the 7th idea is the hidden risk Warren managing is sequencing. Get Itauma step up wrong, and the asset, the compounding asset, is gone. Move too slow, and the prime window closes on both men. In this sense, and maybe we're going down a different path here, but how does Frank Warren remain impartial? How do you maintain your loyalty to both camps? How can you be loyal to Moses Itauma, but then be loyal to Daniel Dubois? And does that matter? Is it a case of you're just impartial and you just let things play out? Or is there a natural favoritism? And even though we can manage risk, you can't completely eliminate risk. So no matter how great the matchmaking is, either fighter can lose. Of course, you can reduce the risk of losing by great matchmaking and a sincere belief in the ability of the fighter and ensuring that the fighter is well prepared, has the best training regime, etc., etc. But there's always variables such as injuries, variables in terms of fighting an opponent who comes in 100% as opposed to coming in at 80% or rediscovers something that hasn't been seen by the tape. There is always variables. And then the final idea, which is the eighth idea, is the forecast. This fight gets made only when avoidance becomes a bigger story than the matchup, when public pressure finally makes silence cost more than the fight itself. And let's be honest, the fight itself could be a great one. Power versus power. Both have great feet. I thought Daniel Dubois exhibited his great feet against Fabio Wardley. Moses Itauma also has great feet. He's great with the step back, but he has the southpaw advantage giving awkward angles. But then Daniel Dubois has the experience advantage. And when you put all these ingredients together, you have the potential for a great fight. So here is my final statement. Think of this. If Frank Warren delays Moses Itauma versus Daniel Dubois, it doesn't automatically mean he's avoiding the fight. It may simply mean he's trying to create the biggest moment possible. Great promoters don't just make fights, they build events. So the real question isn't whether this fight happens, but when the reward finally outweighs the risk. And if that day comes, we could be watching one of the biggest all-British heavyweight clashes the sport has seen in years. So that's the end of the video. Now I'm trying to build a digital boxing community, and that means I'm interested in your thoughts, I'm interested in your perspectives, and I'm interested in your observations. Now, if you want to support the channel, press like, hype, and subscribe. And if you want to watch more content like this, then simply click here or click here. As always, thanks for your time. It is much appreciated.